The number has skyrocketed and now it's almost 900. So it's too many. And we should be retroactively probably going back and giving all these women the correct medals and be taking the medals away from the trans people because it's... Hey everybody, my name is Alex Daly and today I'm going to be watching another video from Jubilee. It just dropped a couple days ago and it is called One Conservative versus 25 LGBTQ plus Activists featuring Michael Knowles. I'm going to be commentating on this video today as I watch it, and the video I think is a really interesting concept. I am a conservative person who is technically part of the LGBT. Yeah, so let's dive right in.
And they deserved them.
It didn't happen and they deserve them. Okay, that is the logic I hear from the pro-trans crowd. Yeah.
Thank you. They do deserve them because I'm sure they followed the specifications
you.
for the sport, and that's why they were there in the first place.
Hello.
Hello. So I think I want to start off by asking you what your solution is to, like, the word eradicating. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean by that?
Well, the word literally means to pull up by the root. So not just to have some half measure where you say, you know, okay, we're only going to trans kids after the age of 9, but not under the age of 9. Okay, we're only going to let men who identify as women go into this bathroom, but not that sports team or whatever. I don't think a half measure makes any sense. In fact, I think a lot of the conservative arguments...
You're not answering my question. What's the solution?
Oh, it means to uproot it.
So how do you do that? I want to know how you're going to uproot an entire percentage of people.
I'm not uprooting people. I would return American public law to what it was before roughly 2015.
I don't understand the perspective of how you or the Conservative Party is going to make any sort of progress in...
I would even argue that probably before 2015, being trans was better. Being trans was better. We didn't have issues. We didn't have these people coming in and doing these disgusting things like entering bathrooms and assaulting women. We didn't have trans women assaulting people in prison. We didn't have all these issues that we have now. So I wouldn't mind if things went back to 2015. Life was much better for people at that time. People who are trans, people who are women who have been affected by the whole trans movement. He's not being unreasonable. It sounds extreme, saying let's eradicate it. But I don't think that everything he's saying is how we should be doing it. But I think that what he's saying and what it actually means for him is a little bit different from how it's coming across. In the sense that, like, we can't be going into people's homes and saying, you can't dress this way, you can't present this way, like... That's not going to happen, because in 2015 that wasn't happening. What he means is, in the law, we shouldn't have all these bylaws that are now sort of like protecting these predators. That's what we need to remove, and I agree with that.
And eradicating an entire percentage, I think it's just...
We're not eradicating people. You're trying to say that because it makes us look crazy.
That's what you're saying.
No, I said I want to eradicate a whole ideology of transgenderism.
Trans people. That is going to be people that you are taking...
Like, if I want to eradicate poverty, that doesn't mean I want to kill all the poor people.
I'm not saying
quite the opposite,
I'm not saying that you want to kill... I'm asking you what your plan, like what in the best case scenario, how are you going to get people to stop being trans?
I think we're going to tell boys that they're not girls,
so we're
going to
tell boys that they're not girls, and they're going to listen.
Yeah, basically.
Really?
Yeah, that's what we've done for most of history.
That happened to me, and I can promise you to God that I didn't listen.
Yeah, well, because we live at a time that is affirming the transgender delusion. But if we lived at a more sensible...
Yeah, he's not wrong. I think there's a world in which we can all be in reality and know that people like me, I'm a biological male. That is just factual. There is nothing that can change that. It's nothing to be ashamed of. The issue that all these people are having, they hate the reality that they can't change their biological sex, that was decided for them. They hate that fact. And at the end of the day, it's a fact. And we can have a lot of emotions about facts. We can go into a study, we can go and find out factual information, and it may make us feel A, B, or C, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how it makes you feel, because if something's a fact, that's reality. Like, there's nothing that changes reality, and reality is you're a biological male who's presenting, yes, as a woman. That is the reality. Denying that is sort of denying reality. So I think that's where the issue comes from.
Time. Probably you would have listened, and you might have had some. And I think we should just return to a more sensible kind of politics.
But what is yours? You're not giving a solution on how you would even be capable of doing something.
Yeah, I think I am. I think we kick the fellas out of the boys' bathroom. We kick the transgender teaching out of schools.
How are you going to do that?
We just enforce the law as it was before 2015.
There was a law prohibiting trans women to go into the women's bathroom or trans men going into the men's bathroom.
Yeah, it's there in the term women's bathroom.
That's a law.
That's why men can't go in.
That's a law.
Yeah. Yes, there are all sorts of laws against public indecency, for one, against men going into women's sports leagues. There are all sorts of regulations against that, or at least there were until recently. We did not have established in public life transgenderism until very, very recently.
That's not true.
It was sort of when trans people were not really known. Like, we all knew they existed, but transsexuals were people that were really trying to pass, and in a time where no one really knew anything about transsexuals. So when they went into the women's bathroom, they were a genuine transsexual who was just going to the bathroom and not having this ulterior motive because they weren't an AGP who's been indoctrinated by this gender ideology. They were just a person who is with gender dysphoria, has gone through steps to become passable, carries themselves as the gender that they're trying to be perceived. When they went to the bathroom, no one even knew because there was no dramas, there was no issues, there were no safety concerns because they weren't doing anything wrong. It's now that we have all this publicity and there's all these people who are doing the wrong thing and using it as a ticket to sort of get into places they're not supposed to be, in a sense that they're using it for devious things like going and assaulting women. It's being way too loud and being way too public that has created this a really, really uncomfortable situation for people who are actually trans. Like, if we were not in the public eye as much and we were not doing all these crazy things, like, we would be back in 2015 where when a trans person went to the bathroom, no one knew and no one cared. They were trying to be passable and trying to assimilate. I don't think he would agree with that happening, but at the same time, I don't disagree and say that it was not a better time in 2015 where things were legalized like that, because at the end of the day, it was not an issue. It was not an issue when no one knew what a transsexual really was.
That's not true. What about the two-spirited people?
What is the two-spirited people?
In the indigenous community,
they are. It's silly.
I don't want to get into semantics, but I know that.
I hate the whole like appropriating culture is like an issue because a white person wants to have braids. They should be allowed to have braids. I don't see how that's an issue. That's just someone being offended. But what I do find is a little bit insulting is using someone else's culture and misappropriating it. So they're sort of representing it in a way that's not even true to sort of prove their own ideology, which is something completely separate. It's sort of like when people try to say that non-binary is a thing and then use people who are intersex as an example as to why their ideology exists. And it's like, no, what you're doing now is you're appropriating someone's medical condition. Is a medical condition which makes someone an outlier from what they're supposed to be. You're supposed to be born a male or you're supposed to be born a female. And you're appropriating someone who's got a medical condition, which leaves them, yes, somewhere in between.
What is the two-spirited people?
In the indigenous community, they are. I don't want to get into semantics, but I know that the fact is that there has always been trans people.
Do you know where the phrase two-spirited came from?
I don't. Please enlighten me.
It came from the 3rd annual Intertribal Native American First Nations Gay and Lesbian Americans Conference in 1990. And the woman who coined that term...
I just don't think that that's true.
It's true. The woman who coined that term admitted... Hold on. Let me just finish my point on this. The woman who coined that term, Maya Laramie, admitted somewhat recently that the term two-spirit came to her in a dream in 1990. Now, the Ojibwe Nation actually has translated this term. It's the Niche Mani Duwag, but they translated it from the English in 1990.
How you're capable of eradicating an entire percentage of people by setting laws, because people are
I think you're choosing not to hear what I'm saying, because I'm saying we don't want to eradicate any people. We want to eradicate but the other word is trans.
Yeah, but she is choosing to ignore it. Maybe not consciously, but her subconscious is choosing to ignore it. She is misinterpreting what he is saying on a subconscious level so that she doesn't have to come to reality with the fact that what she believes is wrong. She's hearing eradicate and she goes, eradicate people, Holocaust, genocide. She's doing all these things and proving that her case for being a victim and being someone who is a minority who is being discriminated against, she's using that filter to sort of hear things in a way that are not factually true. And what he's saying is not eradicate a person's existence. He is saying eradicate the laws which have enabled predators to go and do things which are harming women. That's what he's saying. And That's more than fair.
Transgenderism, which is an ideology, not a group of
I
people.
am a transgender person. You can't just
you are a
skip over that
confused
fact.
person, but
I'm
you're not.
Babe. I'm so secure in myself, and there's other women in this room that are also trans, have been trans for 20 plus years, 7 years, babe.
She's secure in her confusion. She's got conflicting ideas in her head, and she's living in a dissonance, which is between reality and her ideology, and she's not able to sort of see reality when it's being spoken directly to her face, which is not a healthy way to live, ultimately.
Know exactly what they're doing.
You're confused because it's not
How
possible for a man to become a
looking
woman.
at somebody without knowing their bodily autonomy, knowing anything that's going on with their medical
Bodily
history,
autonomy?
anything,
Because
anything.
I know
you know nothing
I know
about
the
me.
basics of human nature.
You know nothing about
She's using
me.
the
I know
wrong
that you're
word.
human. And I know a little bit about human nature. And I know that a boy can't become a girl. So that's what I know.
Does anybody want to take that?
See, she literally is confused, and she's looking around to see if anyone else is sort of also confused, but also is like offended. So she sort of has like the support of her belief system, which is being attacked, and for good reason. Like, her support system needs to be attacked. Like, it needs to crumble, and she needs to see reality. There's only so much you can do for people who are so committed to an ideology. Like, I think that we should always try to help them, but at the end of the day, if someone's not willing to listen, like, what else is there to do?
You're tapping out.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like I did you dirty there.
That was very unchivalrous.
I'll let you. I'll only take a sec, okay? Everyone, just vote me out in like a minute or two. Okay. I want to make a very quick point.
Yep.
That was a lot of stuff. Oh my God, you'd be great at Jeopardy. All these
Thank
things.
you. Thanks.
Okay, so you mentioned what you would do if your kid came to you and said, you know, in a medical sense, they had gender dysphoria, right?
Yeah,
and gender dysphoria, a specific medical diagnosis where somebody's sense of their gender is not matched to their physical gender-related characteristics and or the way society perceives them.
Yep.
In a world where gender-affirming care is allowed, as a parent, you still have the right to not have your kid go through that care, right?
In some places. In some places you don't.
Why is it that...
Yeah. In places like California, the schools for ages were legally allowed to hide that from the parents.
So the first one was having to call students by their preferred gender or pronoun. The second one, I was told I would have to withhold that information from parents, which I clarified, are you asking me to lie to parents? And they said, yes, it's for the student privacy.
And when you did that, ultimately what that led to was these parents trying to sort of say, like, no, like, this is not what you're supposed to be doing. Like, this is not right. And when a kid hears that after being told by people who are supposed to be trusted caretakers, like a teacher, and they're all their friends, they're thinking, oh my God, my parents, they're oppressors. My parents, they're discriminating against me. And all it does is then it creates this very, very harsh barrier between the parents and the children. And now the children believe their parents are against them, and the parents are just have their kids' best interests at heart, and now they don't know how to get through to their child to stop them from going down this horrible path which is not meant for them. It's leading them to like leave their families, and it's not because their parents don't love them, it's because they can't see that their parents love them, because all they see is this ideology of gender is going through the schools in places like California. It's being weaponized against the parents, and it is the victims of this whole thing are the children, but they don't even know they're the victim, not from the parents, becoming victims because of what the teachers are doing to them.
Is it that every major medical association supports access to this care?
That isn't true. Sweden, Finland, and the UK all just banned the cross-sex or the puberty blockers for children because there was the CAS review of the transgender
You
studies.
walked into my trap, Michael.
Okay.
I learned about the CAS review. The CAS review was done by Dr. Hilary Cass, a pediatrician, on behalf of the NHS.
Yep.
They did not find any evidence of harm, and they did not recommend a ban, and a ban did not happen. All they did was
A ban on what? A ban on what?
Puberty blockers.
On puberty blockers.
All they did was limit access to research settings. France did a similar national review. They found the opposite thing. So here's the problem.
So the UK did ban it. That's something you said.
No, they restricted it. Have you ever seen?
What's the difference?
Guns
They
are
banned it for
restricted.
kids.
They're not banned. There you go. That's the difference.
They-
So, have you ever watched a toothpaste commercial, Michael? This is my line I prepared. I want to say it. Okay, so
Be my guest. Yes.
you know when they say
He has so much patience, and I really respect him for that. He's really just sitting there and like he's getting his points across, yes, but these people, they're just... This one seems a little bit less delusional. I think he's a little bit ill-informed, but he's a little bit calmer than everyone else has been. But this guy, like, what's it called? Michael Knowles, he's so calm. And he's so patient. And normally, I would say people, these leftist people, these people part of the LGBT, they're all getting so fired up and becoming reactive. And it's like quite an impressive skill for him to be so calm and to hold his ground and be able to put together a cohesive point when all you hear is this nonsense. Sometimes when you hear nonsense, all you want to do is just tell them to shut the f*** up. I probably would struggle being in his position, but at the same time, like, I don't know, maybe I'd do really well. Maybe Julie, hit me up. Yeah, imagine that, like a conservative trans person against, that would be an undertaking. But at the same time, like, yeah, Michael, he's doing such a great job. He's remaining calm, he's just spitting facts. They're using these really, really baseless tactics. Like, they're insulting and they're saying things that don't really make sense, or they're pivoting their perspectives, or they're just ill-informed. They don't believe it when Michael's been saying facts.
9 out of 10 dentists recommend this toothpaste.
Yeah.
I feel like what you guys do is you point to the 10th dentist.
Who's you guys?
The people who are conservatives and advocate your position.
Yeah.
They say, look at the 10th dentist. They're a dentist, and they think the toothpaste is terrible. What about the other 9 dentists?
But
Why is there a global medical consensus?
There isn't a global medical consensus.
Yes, there is. Okay,
you know,
No, there is not a global medical consensus that 9 out of 10 dentists recommend it. What I don't think many people know is that's just the name of the company.
Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. I bet you didn't know that acronym.
I did not.
Google GLAAD medical associations. They have a page where all of this is just links to like 30-something medical associations.
But you're suggesting that the review by the NHS of the puberty blockers is the 10th dentist, and it's not. And furthermore, even the New York Times, which I don't read. I don't like the New York Times.
New York Times? Okay,
hold on. Let me just make this point. The New York Times came out very recently in 2022. The puberty blockers, contrary to what we've been told, are not, in fact, often reversible. That is one of the reasons why you're seeing major restrictions, if you like to call it that, moving toward full bans in multiple countries, is because it causes all sorts of problems for kids long term.
Have you ever met a kid with asthma?
Yes.
So a kid with asthma might be prescribed. I'm sorry, I'm blanking here. This is hard. Yes, thank you. It's a steroid, right?
Yeah.
Steroids can have side effects. Doctors monitor for side effects.
Yes.
So puberty blockers can have side effects. Doctors monitor for side effects.
The problem is that asthma responds to a real medical condition where you have trouble breathing.
Gender dysphoria is in the DSM.
It's...
Having gender dysphoria is not as significant as not being able to breathe.
Okay.
All right, you're out.
Thank you.
A pleasure. Round 2. Yes, there we go. Yes, thank you.
I'm happy to continue this if you want.
Happily, yeah.
All right, I added 5 more minutes.
Why?
Oh, wow, you guys, thank you.
Wow. Hello.
Hi, I'm Lex.
Lex, nice to meet you. I'm Michael.
I want to talk about the term eradication.
Okay.
Eradicating trans identities, sure. Trans people is really what you're referring to.
It's not what I'm referring to.
Sure. So I want to chat about where we've also seen that before. Can you guess?
Where?
What did I just say before? She's about to say the Holocaust, and she's about to say Jewish people, and that's such a terrible argument because you're not being genocided. Like, stop it.
Yes, you're going to say something about Hitler.
Do you want to know the first book burning that the Nazi Party did?
Please, yes.
It was the Library of Queer and Trans History.
It's outrageous.
Yes, and you know why they burned those books is because those books had a lot of perverted ideas in them. And they had a lot of really, really toxic things that are very reminiscent of the ideologies that seem to be coming forward today in Western culture, like in woke ideology when it comes to gender. In my opinion, a lot of it is perverted behavior, like these gay books that they have in schools, which are literally teaching kids how to perform fellatio, how to have full intercourse, how to use Grindr. And it's like these books are in schools with kids who are like 12, 13 years old.
There was one called, there was a teacher who provided a book to her middle schoolers called This Book is Gay. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I have heard. That's actually a very good book.
And it provides instruction on she provided instruction to children on how to use adult gay anonymous sex apps. Yeah, I don't think that's appropriate. Now look, by all means, you can be in favor of them.
Maybe she had a child in her classroom
who wanted to go on Grindr and have sex with adults. Is that your argument?
No, I mean,
And it's like, why are we teaching kids how to do these things? Like, that's disgusting. I agree that most of these books that we are seeing, like the gay book bans, like most of them shouldn't be in school. Some of them are disgusting. There's like books where they're literally teaching kids how to eat it's really like feces. Like, there's books that are literally teaching kids to do these things and about fetishes, and it's perverted, pedophilic ideas that we should not be allowing kids to consume. I think it's pretty understandable why 100 or like when over years ago when these books were coming out, like, they're perverted. Like, I understand why they burnt them.
I heard Martin Luther burn Thomas Aquinas' books, which bothers me even more.
It's so funny you want to bring up Martin Luther right now, but that's a whole other conversation. My point
Plato
is,
advocated book burning.
fascism as a whole really loves to hone in on small portions of society. And right now, I'm sorry, I'm going to outright call you a fascist.
Oh, no.
And say that what you're
heaven
saying
forfend.
is hate speech.
Again,
Again,
we're going back to insults because we don't have an argument. These people don't really understand the ideology that they're pushing, and they don't understand the effects of it, and they can't even argue it because it's a feeling. This ideology, it's all about feelings, and when we use feelings to try and go against facts, we always lose. We may feel like we've been done wrong by, but at the end of the day, if it's not based in reality, then it's not gonna win. Reality always should win and always will win when it comes to going against the way that someone feels. If someone feels like reality isn't fair, that's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, the most fair thing about life is that life isn't fair. It isn't. Everyone's born into different lives with different circumstances, and that's what makes life fair, is that it isn't fair.
Calling for is an eradication of an entire community of human beings that deserve
Just because
to
you
exist,
say that doesn't make it true.
That deserve to have rights.
Not listening. They can't see through their ideology. It's almost like they fundamentally have completely different beliefs, and because of the fundamentally different belief system in being part of the LGBTQ community or whatever, it makes it so that you literally can't see someone's argument. You are looking through this lens, and all you see is something which is filtered. You see something that is like not reality.
That deserve
They do deserve to have rights. Oh, yeah, I agree.
And
I totally agree. I think you're very disrespectful to them by lying to them. I think lying is very disrespectful.
Oh.
Yeah.
Guys, do you feel like I'm lying to you? No. Okay. Just want to make sure.
But you are. You know, I guess you know what, you might not be lying in that you might be confused yourself, and lying is an intentional is telling an intentional untruth.
So I also want to talk about, when we're talking about puberty blockers and these long-term effects that actually haven't been studied, there are genuinely no long-term studies on puberty blockers that have been repeated enough to be accepted by the American Academy of Pediatrics,
I grant that it's hard to find data on
by
these
the
things,
American Academy of Clinical.
I don't think I need to go into detail about all the negative side effects that come from being on puberty blockers, but I will anyway. We're going to be sterilizing our kids. We're going to be leaving them often, if they're done between the ages of 9 to 12, with the inability to be able to have an orgasm as an adult. We're stopping the kids from being able to go through what is the most natural thing in the world, which is puberty.
Of clinical endocrinologists who are the clinical experts.
But the data that we do have persuaded even people who formerly advocated puberty blockers to recognize that they are not totally reversible.
But they haven't, because I literally can. I'm sorry, we can fact check this at home, but I counted before I came in here 13 different governing bodies of medical professionals who all support unanimously access to puberty blockers and gender-affirming care.
Right, but I just named you 3 whole nations that don't support it anymore.
Oh,
who previously did, like Sweden was the most probably pro-trans country in the world. There are how many countries that believe in transgenderism? Not that many. Not that many that believe in transgenderism.
Access to puberty blockers. That's okay.
All right. All on your own. You got it.
Thank you.
It's because he's right. Then there's no one that can like do it against that.
I just find it interesting how usually this is Matt Walsh stick from y'all's place, and it seems like you're trying to leech on it from a lot of the media attention that you got from the Transgenderism movie Eradicated.
God, he takes everything with a grain of salt. Like, he's quite, he's very forgiving and understanding. He's understanding in the sense that like he understands that people are saying things and they don't really understand that what they're saying is insane, and he can understand that yes, while things can be rude, it's like they don't even see it, so it's almost like not their fault, even though it is. It's like almost not their fault because they're like being captivated by this woke mind virus.
People don't usually confuse me for Matt Walsh. They usually confuse me for Rachel Maddow. But she didn't come here either.
You present very feminine, which is why I feel like it's weird that you keep calling yourself like he or this term Michael.
Well,
I still have yet to see a birth certificate.
I'm glad that you recognize that there are stereotypical behaviors of men and women, and that they maybe ought to behave in those ways.
That's what a social role is. It's performative characteristics. So it looks like we're agreeing.
I don't.
What I don't agree with though is that you're saying again these specific. Biological essentialism, which you cannot prove right now. I wouldn't call
myself a biological essentialist.
You said things like chromosomes, genitals are the only things that can determine what people can perform.
I've never said that. When did I say that?
What do you mean? We can rewind the prompts. You guys can go back in the video.
Please do. Good luck. Good luck doing that.
What have you said then?
I agree with you that there is a social and performed aspects to gender. In fact, I agree that there is a distinction to be had between sex and gender. Judith Butler goes a little wrong. I guess my point is that pro-trans people say that when you are a man, your body is that of a man, but you desire to behave in a way that is not like a man, that you should do that. And then actually you should change your body often to be more like the opposite sex. And I guess my argument is...
Well, that's not something that's advocated for people who all experience gender dysphoria.
Yes, it is. That's literally what they all push for. They try to say that just because a boy from a young age plays with a Barbie doll means that, oh my God, it's a girl, and we should transition them. And it's like, no, that's not what we should do, because you know what the funny thing is when it comes to people who are gay and people who are transsexuals is that you'll often find that both the gay little boys and the little boys that grow up to transition into transsexuals, they all played with Barbies. They all did these really feminine things. It's like just because someone does something that's very traditionally the other gender doesn't always mean that they should transition. But that's what they are pushing for in this community. The activists are pushing for these kids to be transitioned.
There are certain instances where the medical community will say that this doesn't improve people's quality of life.
You don't think that puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones and surgeries are advocated for?
Let's stop doing this.
Well, I'm glad you know my name now.
I've never said that.
You did just say that.
I am being respectful this time.
Well, that's good.
Because I want to, just respect it and show that it's not something that has to be proven on a piece of paper the way that we engage as a dialogue. So I'm just choosing to use the respectful terms that you've said, even though you still haven't proved that your name's Michael, by the way, which is a little bit weird. We'll continue to go back to not all medical professionals will advocate for gender-affirming care for every person that's trans. Oftentimes it's a social transition where people are just changing their name or the way that they're dressed. So let's just have some appropriate respect.
But that's a bad idea,
Let's just treat people like society.
That's a bad idea,
Let's just treat people societally.
Yeah, like socially transitioning someone as a child, all it's doing is setting them up to then sort of become medicalized as an adult. Even if they don't do anything as a child, they just sort of present the other way. It's sending them down that pipeline. We should always be encouraging kids to grow up as the gender that they were born, keeping the names that they were born with, and growing up to becoming a fully fledged adult as the gender that they were born. And then it's in that circumstance when they're an adult and they can make the appropriate choice that they can go forward with transitioning. And it's only once they've gone through puberty that we can then diagnose them with actually having gender dysphoria.
Related with all sorts of terrible outcomes, and it's contrary to reality.
Is it?
So to your point,
wearing certain clothes is contrary to reality?
Yeah,
if you go to
behaving like a woman if you're a man
are you crying because you see a man in a kilt?
Kilts are very masculine.
Oh wow, there you go.
I'm willing to.
Gender roles can change; they're malleable. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying
there's not something intrinsic that says I should wear this.
Not
particular
exactly.
Set of
Fashions can change,
okay.
but I'm willing to go further than maybe some of my friends and colleagues and conservatives, which is that I don't think that gender is just your biology, because I don't think a human person is just a body. I'm not a materialist. I think that we're body and soul. I think that we have...
so that goes back to, again, you arguing from a religious perspective, which
or
you have an American right to have.
Or a philosophical
but it's an American right to have that
perspective,
lack of religious perspective too. And that's what I'm trying to be here. I'm a patriotic man, Michael.
Right, but the
USA.
But I guess
should we have the freedom of expression expression,
I guess
freedom, the First Amendment. That's what it's all
we don't
for.
have. There's no First Amendment right to obscenity, first of all. But second
It's
of all,
obscene for me to wear a dress.
But the view
isn't it weird because I have XX chromosomes, Michael?
Yeah.
Big surprise.
You have XX chromosomes.
Yeah. Would you call me she, her now?
I don't. I'll
Oh, it looks like
I'll defer.
I think he was just being polite, honestly. Like, it's not that he couldn't debate against it. It's that, like, what do you do when you hear that? You sort of just go like, oh, you're awkward because it's weird.
Defer to you. I don't remember your name. What is your name?
What would you say my name is?
I don't know.
You can determine. You just said it easy. It's very easy to determine.
Well, I could say if you look more like a man or a woman. But what is your name? Like? You look more like a man.
Okay.
Without question. You certainly do.
Thank you so much. Because I don't. I have XY chromosomes.
Proving Michael's point.
It shows that you're like freaking out on trying to figure out what objective truth is.
I don't think I'm freaking out. I think that people are intentionally confusing people in public, which is one of the problems of transgender.
Confusing.
Yeah, for a man to pretend to be a woman. That would be one example.
You've been saying that you're a man. I'm not seeing any masculine qualities, but I'll still call you a man for the rest of this video.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad you do. But because actually, our identity as people doesn't depend upon some kind of performance. I don't need to wear a tank top or look like a big He-Man. There's just an objective reality to it.
Performative characteristics. That is something that you just said. Rewind again, like 20 seconds.
There is, if you would listen to what I've said, there is obviously a socially enacted aspect to sex. The pro-trans people who are operating off of a religious, or rather irreligious, Gnostic anthropology say that when there is a distinction between the two, one should favor the fantasy over the biological reality. And what I'm saying is when there's a distinction between the two, which does sometimes happen, then if you're a fella, you should just act like a man.
Yeah, and you acting like a man, again, is going to change depending on what the cultural context it is that you're residing in.
Yeah, not all that much.
As you just said.
Not all
you
that
just
much.
said, if I wore
We're not
a
seahorses. I'm never going to give birth.
You'd be like, yo, that's a little bit weird. But just because I have a plaid pattern on it, you're going to say it's masculine to wear a kilt. That's something that just
Scots are pretty. The Scots are pretty masculine. Yeah.
It's
fashions change. Fashions change.
Okay, so that was the end of the section. Transgenderism should be eradicated from public life entirely. I actually found myself agreeing quite a lot with what the conservative Michael Knowles actually did have to say. I found him very, very informative. I did find it very, very interesting. But if you do have anything that you'd like to comment, whether it's you agree with me or disagree with me, please don't forget to leave a comment down below and also like the video. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. My name is Alex Daly. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.